to Psychotron.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Mike Utting, and welcome to another episode of Utter Football. In the studio tonight with me is my trusty sidekick, Elia, and you've been in, this is your third week now, mate?
Yeah. Third week.
I tell you what, it's a bit cold out there. It's nice to be in here, and it's a bit nice and warm, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit better.
It must be
freezing out there.
It is, mate. But before we get started, we're obviously going to have a special on the European Cup. And I tell you what, mate, these supporters must be spewing. Yeah, what can you say? Elia, your thoughts? As a football purist and a Manchester United fan, you must be, well, your heart's got to be on your sleeve for those Liverpool supporters, doesn't it, mate?
Well, yeah, it's sad for them, but they're always up against it, of course, playing Madrid, who've, won the last two, and...
It's 4 out of 5 or something they've won now, isn't it? They've won the last 3 now, isn't it?
Yeah, they've won 3 in a row. And yeah, Zidane's sort of maybe curbed any speculation he might get the sack because, you can hardly... Yeah. I suppose you can sack someone after the one European Cup.
But can you ever sack Zinedine Zidane, mate? I don't know whether you could do that.
Yeah, no, it's pretty... it was... watching the game, it was... You couldn't help but feel for Salah that he had to go off injured, 24 minutes or something. His arm... gets stuck in between Sergio Ramos's arm and his torso. And
don't go on too much with that, mate, because you know what we do. We have planned this out tonight a little bit about what we're going to do. And before we get into the European stuff, because we're going to have a look at New Zealand football later on as well, because there's been some changes on the board of directors there, I believe. We're also going to have a look at this new all-white squad they've named and whether it should be an all-white squad, because there's a lot of people out and perhaps an A team maybe, because there's a lot of youth and a lot of players that haven't played at that level. But first and foremost, and the most important thing that I wanted to stress was, how did your game go on the weekend, mate? I heard you had a crushing loss. What was it, 8-3 or 8-6 or something?
8-5.
8-5.
Yeah, it was a cracking match. But we maybe, we were the victims of just not being able to cope with the strikers on the other team. They had a bit of pace and they just sort of...
Carved you up, mate.
Well, we dominated. We probably had 70% of possession.
Yep.
And we went 2-0 down early. Then we got back into it. Our young winger, his name's Liam, he had a blinder. He's a good little player, and he deserved to win, but we couldn't quite maintain it for him. But no, it was a fun game in the end, and they're a good team to play against. They're called Douglas Phillips Skulls.
Yep.
Yeah, good bunch of guys, and it was good fun.
Just on that, mate, I had a sneaky suspicion you might score a goal in the weekend, so I had my mate down there with a recorder, and you did score, didn't you?
Yeah, I got a header, yeah.
Scored a stunning header, and apparently this was the noise from the sideline when you scored, mate. Fantastic, mate. Where were you playing? Were you playing at Kiwitea Street or something?
No, we were at, what's it called? Howard Booth Park.
Howard Booth Park. Where's that? Is that down in Carterton?
Yeah, I don't know if that recording's accurate.
Well, I mean, You scored a goal, mate, and you can't. Do you give it large when you scored? Did you go and do a bit of a lap or shoot off or anything like that, or just walk back to halfway and start again?
It was if I hadn't have scored it, I would have been embarrassed. It was it was a good header, but I got the ball put right on my head for me by young Liam, and just had to nod it in from 8 yards or something.
So you made the most of it. That's the main thing, mate.
Yeah.
European Cup football. Let's get into it, because there's a lot of people that we've advertised and we've let people know that we're going to be talking about it. The lines are open tonight, 06378 0255. That's if you want to call in, and we're just talking football. And mind your language, people, because this is live, and no stressed out Liverpool supporters, please, or if you are, keep it civil. But what do you think of the game over the whole, mate?
Yeah, it was. I suppose it was a good game, but you can't help but feel that it was ruined by that early exit of Salah. Really, it was like, and Ramos, good defender, but he's a bit of a grub in some ways. He's got a history of, some fairly dirty play, and him and Pepe were sort of the most hated centre backs in the bloody business for a number of years. But Ramos has got priors really, and people have argued that, it was accidental, but if you see certain angles, you can see that he pinned his arm, and apparently in the NRL and rugby union now, that exact foul is, I know in the NRL, I think it's 10 minutes in the bin if someone does it.
Is that right?
Yeah, yep. Pretty sure someone told me that the other day. So, and you couldn't help but feel after that had happened that, it was like just the game lost something, and everyone wanted to see Salah, see what he could do against Madrid, and then suddenly he's out of the game, and it's like, disappointing. I just was watching it and I was like, man, goodness, is he going to go off, and you could sort of tell straight away because the look on his face that he'd been quite badly hurt.
Yeah.
And apparently his ligaments were badly strained, so he could barely hold.
Did he dislocate his shoulder?
Yeah, dislocated.
Is that right?
Yeah. So
how's the World Cup looking for him?
Apparently, he thinks he's going to be okay for Russia, according to the latest statement, even though there was a lot of talk that he was going to be out, which is good for Egypt, and he's pretty popular back home, and so they'll be relieved with him saying that he's still going to be there, and maybe he can sort of have his moment at the World Cup because he didn't get it in the CL final, did he?
Yeah. Well, I think it's excuse me, it's been frustrating. I actually felt the final was frustrating. I thought it was the build up to it being an amazing game was fantastic, but then it sort of let itself down, because I think with Mo going off, I thought although he had a couple of chances and the keeper made a couple of good saves early on, the Liverpool keeper, but Ronaldo was below his best, I thought, and then obviously Gareth Bale scored one absolute stunner. That was better than the Ronaldo bicycle kick from a few weeks back, wasn't it? Yeah, well, it was sort of, his one was, he had to, the ball was behind him. It was an amazing effort, really. It wasn't, it was a reasonable cross, but it wasn't the greatest cross. It wasn't like it was put on a platter for him or anything, but he made it happen, really, and no, it was it was a good game in some ways, but it was an odd game. Carvajal went off injured early as well. Mm-hmm. He was devastated, and it wasn't like Madrid played that well. Like Liverpool played quite well, Madrid played quite well. Neither team could really say they played well enough, to say they, outright deserved to win it. It was because Karius made his two, mistakes, and feel sorry for the guy. But on the other hand, he's a top class keeper who's paid a lot of money to play, and those are the games where you prove that you're meant to be there. And he's let himself down, he's let the club down, but hopefully he can bounce back. He's only a young guy, isn't he? Yeah, he's only 24, and I think obviously they've got such a wealth of talent, the German goalkeepers, and the guy from, was it Neuer from Bayern Munich, he'll be the number one going into the World Cup. But Karius, he's only 24 years old, as I said, and he's got a long career. It's interesting because I spoke to a few goalkeepers today, and as I said, Grant Schofield should be on the show later on tonight. He's going to phone in, but I also I had a quick chat with Bruce Grobbelaar last night.
He would have been pretty gutted.
Very gutted, because he's a Liverpool man through and through. He was there for 14 years, and he's still an ambassador for the club, even though he had that other stuff, who cares? Yeah. He was an amazing guy, and he actually had this to say about what was going on, mate, because he wears his heart on his sleeve, and I gave him a call last night, and he sent me a message, and he said the following.
Hi there, Michael. It's good to speak to you. Listen, your show, Utting, is brilliant there down in New Zealand. Listen, Michael, I'm very, very disappointed on what happened last night with the Champions League. Karius had a shocker, but, that's the nature of the game. If he learns from this, maybe he can come back stronger. But I think that we will be looking for a new goalkeeper. Maybe Pepe Reina coming back to Anfield will be a good thing. All the very best to you. I'm still very disappointed for all Liverpool supporters. Cheers, mate. Bye.
Well, there you
Hi
have
there,
it.
Michael.
Oh,
it's good.
Let's stop that. We've got to play it again, mate. But we heard it from the man, Bruce Grobbelaar, and he...
Didn't sound too happy.
He's gutted, mate. He's absolutely gutted, because I thought it was a game that Liverpool, like we said, they could have won it. They could have very easily won it. And as I said, I've got Scoey kind of talk to us as well, because I was sitting at work today thinking, what do you do when you have a stuff up like that? Do you bury your head in the sand and never play football again, or do you get back on the training pitch tomorrow and start working harder again? And that's all you can do, isn't it? Yeah,
well, it is really. I mean, if you you read things about other players who have made sort of monumental errors, and they always say after the game they're on the pitch and they just feel like the ground will swallow them up, and they'll disappear, and that feeling must be incredibly terrible. I mean, horrible, but in the end, what do? You can't. I mean,
exactly, mate. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. That's the game. I spoke to Ross Nicholson, another ex-All Whites goalkeeper, and he had this to say today.
Yeah, hi. I don't think it's a career-ending mistakes that he's made. I mean, I think it's going to be more of a career-defining moments for him. It's going to be better for him to dust it all off and get back onto the training field and get training again as quickly as possible, put it behind him, move forward. As far as his Liverpool career is concerned, that's a big question. I think Liverpool do need a decent keeper. They've got two average.
Well, I don't know what happened there, but I'll try to find out. Are we there?
At the moment, so
here we go.
He'll bounce back, but whether it's going to be at Liverpool is a totally different kettle of fish, different story altogether. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few months, especially after the World Cup. Cheers, mate. See ya.
That was Ross Nicholson, and he was a bit of a character, mate, and he actually mentioned to me today, we were talking about mistakes in big games, and I said to him that I can't remember if I ever made a big howler in a big game. I made a lot of them in games where it didn't matter as much. And he mentioned we were over in an all-whites trip. I think we were playing Oman or someone. It was a part of our build-up to the Confederations Cup in 99 or 2003 in France. And I had actually, a guy had shot straight at me, and I went to palm it down. I palmed it down. It bounced between my legs and bounced up, hit the crossbar, and back in, by that time I'd turned around and back into my hands. And I thought, I actually made a couple of good saves in the second half, and I got the starting berth when we got to the Champions, to the Confederations Cup. But if that had gone in, I probably would have been sacked, mate. Hey, we've got a phone call now, so we'll just check it out and see who it is. Could be Scoey. Hello, you're live on air. This is Mike Utting out of football.
Yeah, hiya. Grant Schofield here. How are you?
Grant Schofield, how are you, mate? I'm with my sidekick, Elia. So,
Hi, Elia. How are you?
Hey, Grant. Yeah, good, mate.
How you doing, mate? You all good?
Yeah, I'm not too bad at all, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, wonderful, thanks. Look, we're having great success with our football show. It's going really good, and obviously we're looking forward to the World Cup, which is just around the corner. It kicks off, I think, on the 13th of June in Russia. And but before we get there, we want to have a little chat about the European Cup final, mate. And obviously I've spoken to a couple of goalkeepers. I had Bruce Grobbelaar just given us a few comments, and Ross Nicholson's also done the same on the show. And I wanted to get you, because I know that you played against England way back in the day, didn't you?
Yes, I did, yeah. And
you,
a while now.
And yeah, it certainly is. But I remember watching that, and it was a very crisp Well, I shouldn't even say it was bloody freezing, mate, wasn't it, when you played there?
It was. Yeah,
But,
playing in that athletic park with a southerly coming right down the middle of the ground,
Oh, nice.
probably about 100 kilometres an hour. But yeah, it was a very experience. It was in a game that had a very large wind factor and something to experience.
I've got to ask you, and I wanted to ask you at the time, but I didn't even know who you were because I was a little kid. But did you contemplate having a go from your end, trying to punt it all the way to the other end?
Well, look, that's always in your mind, of course, when you've got the wind behind you. I mean, it's happened a few times of late, I believe, with some goalkeepers. They've used that to their advantage, and the other goalkeeper's probably slightly out of position, so, it's whistle over the top of him and in the back of the net. But, yeah, look, it's always in the back of your mind, and if you try it once and then you get close, you might try it again, but then, you might get offside with your team because wasting possession. So, yeah, you've got to be a bit sensible about those things.
And you'd be buying the first round if you scored, that's for sure, mate.
Oh, most definitely. I'd be doing a lap, I tell you.
It's not often we get a chance to enjoy the highlight of the game, and obviously, if you reflect back to the European Cup, goalkeepers are often the low light of the game. And
yes.
Tell me what you think about the game first and foremost, and then we'll get into the goalkeeping performance from both goalkeepers.
Yeah, look, it probably didn't really live up to its billing. I mean, obviously, I'm a Liverpool supporter, so I was hoping that we were going to get the victory, but obviously not to be. Look, there was a few players there that, didn't really perform. Ronaldo, obviously, he was the main man, and he really didn't perform in that game, maybe because he was starved of possession, but definitely an off day. For Liverpool, obviously, Mo Salah going off was a big hurt for them, half an hour into the game. Obviously being the guy that scored a lot of goals for them this year. So it probably just felt a little bit flat, to be fair. Obviously, when Gareth Bale came on and scored that wonder goal, it obviously, changed the game. Obviously, Karius' couple of errors obviously didn't help Liverpool's course, of course. But, it was a little bit of a flat affair, I mean, it was a big build-up to it, but, it just didn't quite hit the heights that I thought it might.
Yeah, I think you've knocked it on the head there, mate. And I was saying to Ilya just as we got on the air tonight, I said, look, it had such a huge build-up, and I'd spoken to Bruce Grobbelaar a week ago, and I said to him, mate, what a fantastic game. Liverpool and the attacking prowess they have, and to play against this Real Madrid team, which is, I think they're going through a bit of a transitional period, and Zinedine Zidane, obviously you can't sack him because he's probably the best player in his day, I believe he was, but he was 14 points off the top of the league at the end of the season with Real Madrid, who came third, I think, behind Atletico and also Barcelona, obviously. And he needed this. He's got players, I think, that he wants to get rid of. I know Benzema was one of the players that they're looking to offload, but I'm sure as a fellow Frenchman, he'd like to keep him at the club. But I also think one player that is really sort of, I believe he's fantastic, and I don't think anyone can match him for pace when you know who I'm talking about now, but Gareth Bale, didn't he do himself proud with the goal, especially the first goal he scored?
Oh, look, I mean, unbelievable. I mean, no side can defend against something like that. It was purely out of this world, I mean, you just didn't see it coming, to be fair. I mean, the ball that was delivered in, you thought it would just be a harmless ball that would be cleared away, but he did what he did, and no one could have defended it. No one in the world, no goalkeeper in the world would have saved it, It was just one of those moments in the game that was spectacular.
Yeah, no, top effort, eh? It was Bale is apparently on Manchester United's radar now because of what he said after the game, directly afterward.
What was that? Because I never heard it.
Well, he just sort of hinted at, he was on his way out and he was going to talk to his agent, look at his options. Ronaldo said the same thing, actually, sort of. Ronaldo talked about having been at Real Madrid and his time there was good.
Yeah.
And so he's sort of hinting that he's on the way out as well. So
you reckon mortgage the house and put them on you going to United, both of them?
No, I don't know. I don't think you'd want both of them.
Hey, Scully, how would you like to have Ronaldo and Gareth Bale at training every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday of the week, mate?
Yeah, well, you definitely guarantee the quality, I would imagine, for delivery and things like that. So
you'd get a pretty sore back, though, wouldn't you, mate?
Probably would. But, hey, you could only improve by them.
Yeah, for sure, mate. And so now let's get to the keeper. First of all, the Real Madrid keeper. What do you think about his game?
Navas, not too bad. I mean, he didn't have probably a lot to do, but made a very good stop in the first half of Alexander-Arnold. I mean,
that was a good save,
to make it stick, That doesn't happen too often these days because, as you know, the balls, they're a lot lighter. They fly through the air. There's a lot of movement on them. And you see a lot of keepers now looking to beat things away as opposed to trying to hold them.
Was that the one he got down to his right, low to his right, and saved?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah, and I think he might have actually been a bit obscured his vision as well.
Yeah, I think there was actually, by memory, there might have been actually a slight deflection as well. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I thought it was a great save. I mean, it hit his right hand and sort of dropped underneath him, which was good.
Yeah. It did get away a little bit, but it was close enough for him to regather. But, as I said, most keepers look to beat those away these days because, as I say, the ball moves a lot quicker, moves in the air. So, it's a bit difficult to hold some of those shots when they come in.
Yeah, one thing just on that. I mean, I've never been really impressed with Navas with the ball into the box, a high ball into the box, and he came and flapped at one.
Yes.
And they sort of said he got cleaned out, but he didn't get cleaned out. The guy just jumped above him and headed it over the top. But he hasn't been inspiring confidence for me, and I'm sure he's another one. I mean, I know they want David De Gea, don't they? But I mean, if United can keep him and get a couple of the other Real Madrid boys, they'll be looking pretty good for next season, surely.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, they'll be one of the sides to beat, of course.
Yep, and obviously we've got to go there, mate. But what do you think of the performance by the Liverpool goalkeeper, and what will this do to him?
Yeah, look, I mean, two glaring mistakes, unfortunately. I mean, that aside, I thought he made a couple of really good saves at certain points in the game, which was important.
He had a good first half, didn't he?
Yes, he did. I mean, he made a save at 1-1, which kept them in the game,
Yeah.
And then Bale obviously came in and intervened with his wonder goal. And then, obviously the third goal, an error there, just a decision-making thing for me. I think originally he was looking to beat the ball away and just decided at the last minute that he would try and catch, and his hand positioning just wasn't where it needed to be. And obviously, we know the result, off the side and into the net. So
I'll tell you what I think, mate, happened, and I don't know whether you agree on this, but I'll share my view, and that is that he was up off his toes when the ball got to him. And instead of staying set and in position, he was sort of like a no man's land positional wise. And I felt that the ball dipped and swerved a bit. And
it did move a bit.
Yeah, and when it moved across to his left, he was caught wanting, and he put his hands up because his feet were off the ground. He couldn't adjust his body and get his body behind the ball. And and he's whacked it. He's pinged it as well, hasn't he, mate? But I mean,
I think he's got inside it a little bit. Obviously that with what you're saying. And then just that hand positioning just wasn't quite where it needed to be. They were too close, basically. He needed to be probably slightly wider apart to actually deal with that. But as I said, it looked like he wanted to beat it away originally because his fists were closed when the ball was coming, and then he decided, hey, I'm going to try and catch this. And, we know the result. But, I mean, that aside, obviously the difference, two major errors, obviously I thought was a difference in the game because obviously Bale's won the goal, 1-1.
Yeah.
What about the first goal, Grant? What did you think, when he threw the ball into Benzema's foot? I mean, what was happening there?
I suppose only he can tell you. I mean, obviously he was looking to get the play moving pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think at first, everybody thought, maybe disallowed because obviously, the goalkeeper supposedly is not meant to be impeded when he's trying to get the ball back into play. And that was my first thought when I saw that. I thought, disallowed, but the referee let it stood. And when you looked at the replays, Benzema was actually quite a few yards off him.
And he did take the ball in one hand, didn't he?
Yeah, he didn't really look like he was trying to stop him from doing anything. But and then just the opportunist stuck his foot out, obviously, when he did release it. And, we know the result. It rolled into the net. So maybe on a different day, a different referee, he might have disallowed it. Who knows? But, trying to get the ball back into play. But, when you've got somebody in front of you, you want to really make sure that if you're trying to do that you're making sure all lines are clear so that, once you get that ball out there, there's going to be no chance of anything like that happening.
Yeah, I actually thought I could have, although it was disappointing, his second mistake, I could have let him get away with that because I saw the ball swerving and all that. Although it wasn't good keeping, but the first goal with Benzema, I thought that was scandalous, mate. I thought that was a shocker because he, although you're the first line of attack, your job's to keep the ball out of the net, mate. And he shouldn't have even taken a chance here. And for whatever reason, maybe he just got caught up with the emotion of it all and thought, oh well. he made a huge mistake. And you see Klopp on the side. I mean, I think he's played his last game for Liverpool. I think there's talk Pepe Reina might even go back there, you know. But I mean,
yeah, look, I mean, up until that point, I mean, he's been doing okay for Liverpool, you know. I mean, he sort of cemented a spot on the side, and he was being reasonably consistent, you know. But there's always that error in him, and same with Mignolet. You know, when Mignolet was in there, there's always that error in him, and it's like, you know, top clubs need guys, or especially goalkeepers, that don't have those errors. And look, we're all human and we all make mistakes. But, you know, they're just the sort of guys you get nervous with and thinking, God, you know, is it going to happen or isn't it going to happen? You know, you just need somebody in there that you know that is going to give you consistency and doesn't have that in their game.
Well, I'll put this to you, mate. I mean, when David De Gea went to Man United, he had a couple of shockers, didn't he? He had three or four, half a dozen, and but he was young. And these keepers are still quite young as well. He's only 24. This guy that played on the weekend, and so he's still young, and he's only played age group football for Germany. He hasn't played in the senior team yet. Obviously, there's a lot of competition for that. But I wouldn't throw him on the fire or get rid of him myself, to be fair, mate. I think these are experience which are going to mould you into what you're going to be later on in life. And I think in general these days people are so anxious to get trophies, and you know that if something goes wrong, they get rid of the personnel to try to fix it. You know, but we're only human. We make mistakes. It's like the referees, they make mistakes, and strikers make a lot more mistakes than the midfielders, and the midfielders make a few more mistakes maybe than the striker or the defenders, but when the goalkeeper makes mistakes, he's crucified, mate, you know. But
it comes with the role, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be a better keeper for it, but as I said, maybe not at Liverpool, mate. But
well, obviously, hopefully, I mean, he's going to learn from that experience, you know, whether it's with Liverpool or with another club, you know, who knows. But yeah, I mean, you have to make mistakes in life to learn things. And unfortunately, you know, in the game of football, when it's you know, worldwide and everybody's watching, you know, there's a reaction when something like this happens, and it's like, get rid of him. It's what they say, get rid of him. But you know, is that the right thing to do? Only Jurgen Klopp will decide, obviously, whether that's the right thing to do. Hopefully, they don't. They keep him on the books. He has got potential. He just needs to learn and grow. And goalkeepers, you know, they mature late, you know. And that comes around with match experience, especially playing games at the highest level.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Bruce Grobbelaar, and he played at Liverpool for 14 years, you know, and that's a long, long time. And he played at Liverpool when they were winning European Cups, and he gave it the old spaghetti legs, and they were winning FA Cups and the old First Division, as it was called back in those days. And I tell you what, mate, he made some howlers. You know, he made some howlers. But I mean, as I said, I think the game today has got so caught up with success at all costs that these people are gonna just be thrown in the fire. You know.
Yeah, an immediate reaction on social media now is just it's a different ball game. It's like, you know, he got slaughtered. You know.
Yeah, he did.
It was just
even to the point
ugly.
of reading death threats. So I mean, you know,
I mean,
how bad is that? You know, I mean, no one needs that in their life. You know, hopefully, you know, it's just all talk and nothing comes of it. But yeah, I feel for the guy. Look, being a goalkeeper and being in that situation on some occasions. You know, you're the loneliest person in the world sometimes when something like that happens, and you feel you've let everybody down and you've lost the game and so on. So, but you know, hopefully he can pick himself up and learn from that and mould into a better goalkeeper and hopefully a better person, you know, as he moves along.
Scully, have you ever had a shocker like that, mate?
Oh yes, look, I have. Honestly, probably not in a big game like that. I do remember one game I played. I think it was for Mount Maunganui. It was the Chatham Cup semi-final. I set myself up for a shot there that I thought was going to come on with a lot of pace, and it was a bit of a dribbler. So all my timing was all out, a little bouncy over the top of me, and I didn't feel very good at the time. Felt like I wanted the ground to pick, you know, to open up and swallow me up. So look, it happens. It happens to everybody, and look, we've seen it happen to, you know, the top keepers in the world as well. So no one is immune from it.
Yeah, if you asked me the same question, well, I couldn't tell you how many times, to be fair. It's been so many. But like you said, the only way you're going to improve is by making mistakes, aren't you?
Yeah, well, hopefully learn from those experiences. And look, you still make more. I mean, that's part of life. You know, you're going to make life mistakes, and you're going to make mistakes in playing sport as well. So just learn from them and hopefully become a better person and develop from it.
Scoey, thanks for your time tonight, mate. You've been an absolute champion, mate. I went back to this morning. I was going back over some of the football games I used to play against you, and you were one of the guys I've always looked after as a true professional, or looked up to as a true professional, and I really appreciate your time this evening, mate.
I appreciate your comments, Dutz, and it's good speaking to you again.
Okay, cheers, mate.
Cool, take care, mate.
Okay, no problem. Take care.
Let's have a break and have a song, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Hey, Ilya, let's move on to the World Cup, mate. Just around the corner, 13th of June. No Italy, no Holland, and no New Zealand All Whites. What do you take on that?
Oh, yeah, well, Peru, who we lost
Peru.
to.
What's this I hear about this striker? What's going on there, mate?
Well, they might be without their top striker, Paulo Guerrero. Guerrero, I think his name is. Yeah,
He's been on the old white lines again, hasn't he?
Well, no, I mean, apparently he tested positive for, an element of cocaine after a game. But then it's since come out, his lawyers appealed and said that he'd had a cup of tea that was from the same pot that someone had brewed up some cocoa tea from, coca leaves.
Right.
So,
right.
And that's their appeal. And the whole thing's a bit of one of those sort of, it's a bit of a, one of those sad stories sort of appeals where it's, he's 34 years old or something. And they haven't been at the World Cup for 36 years.
Oh, that's right.
And so, he's, they haven't been at the World Cup since 2 years before he was born.
So So for 36 years, Peru haven't been there? Because I used to love the Peru. They get the sash on there, didn't they? Great
they're a famous team. They always were pretty sort of well known in a strange way, even though they were never actually at the World Cup. But or since when was it? 84. Oh, no, there wasn't a World Cup in 84.
Well, what's it? 36 years ago would have been 18, so that's 18, so 82?
Yeah, 82 World Cup. Was that Spain?
Spain, 82.
We were
there,
at
mate.
that World Cup. Look at that.
That's when we lost to Scotland. I'll tell you what, we lost to Scotland 5-2, though it was 3-1 at one stage in the second half, and then they scored a couple more. And Steve Wooden and Steve Sumner, rest his soul, they were our goal scorers.
Yeah,
we lost 3-0 to Russia, and they were like machines, mate. And that was in the old Soviet bloc when it was just Russia as one whole, it hadn't been broken up.
Yeah.
And we got spanked 4-0 against Brazil, and I think Zico scored a match, the bicycle kick in that game. But great.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a pretty sad story. I mean, if he misses out on the World Cup, Jedinak, the Australian captain, the midfielder, he's at who's he play at now? Was he at Villa? I think they missed out.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, Villa missed out on the return to the Prem. But yeah, Jedinak came out in support because Australia are in the same group as Peru, and he was saying, you can't take the World Cup away from this guy. He's been their top scorer in the playoffs. He's sort of like their Mo Salah, I think, for Peru.
Yeah. Mo Salah, so do you think he'll go or not?
Well, he reckons he's going to go, doesn't he? So, I mean...
Ooh, big ask.
Well, how far away is it now?
It's only, it's 2 weeks.
Is it only 2 weeks?
2 weeks, mate. What's the date today? The 28th? It's on the 13th of June.
Oh,
2 weeks away.
Man, wow, I didn't realise it was
What sort of painkillers can you have? I mean, obviously you can't have any of the really bad stuff, which is going to...
Voltaren?
I'm wondering what they can take these days.
They give them those injections, man, don't they?
Yeah, the cortisone and that sort of stuff to numb it, but that's probably what he will.
They probably would give that to him, wouldn't they?
I would have thought so. But he'd be huge for Egypt, and like you said earlier, he's phenomenal in that part of the world, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's massive in Egypt. He's like a folk hero.
Yeah, he's a god,
Yeah.
I actually watched all of his goals on YouTube today from the last season.
Oh, okay.
And I fell asleep. Not because it was boring, because there were so many of them.
Yeah.
But
he did all right.
He scored for fun, didn't he? And he was at Chelsea, but he failed at Chelsea, didn't he?
Yeah, well, he didn't quite get up to it. And Mourinho was there, and he's pretty ruthless, Mourinho, isn't he? And then he went to Fiorentina, did well there. Then he went to Roma, and then he ended up on the way back to Liverpool. There was a big outcry at Roma this season, actually. They were like, how could you sell this guy?
Is that right?
Yeah, they were pretty... and now the thing is that Klopp's looking at trying to buy their keeper, Alisson, the Brazilian.
Yep.
He's the first choice Roma keeper, and he's in the Brazil squad for the World Cup.
He's normally the Brazil number one, isn't he?
I think he is number one, yeah.
But I'm wondering... It's interesting, because Brazil goalkeepers are normally very poor. But they've got the guy at Man City now who's a youngster.
He's good.
He's big too. He's a giant, mate, and he's very good.
Yeah.
And obviously this guy at Roma.
I always remember Taffarel. You remember Taffarel?
Was my
He was
favourite.
a good keeper, though,
he
wasn't he?
He was brilliant. He made a save against Scotland,
which
was just fantastic. It was like, Dudek's one against AC Milan for Liverpool in the penalty shootout.
I was thinking about that save in the morning of the Champions League. I was like, man, that was that. I remember watching that save live, and I was like, how did he? I mean,
it was off Zinchenko, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that's right.
It was incredible. Yeah, that save.
And then he gave it the spaghetti legs a la Bruce Grobbelaar, didn't he? And won them the European Cup. And
he did well.
I mean, I've watched, and to all the Liverpool supporters out there, and I know there's a few in New Zealand and there's a few more all over the world, but I've watched that bit of video of Liverpool winning that, the 10-minute, I think it's about a 10-minute piece of Liverpool going 3-0 down, and then get at half-time, getting back to 3-all. Keeper's made a couple of brilliant saves, kept them in it, and then in extra time he's made a couple of brilliant saves, keep them in it, and then they've won on penalties. And and what was interesting earlier for me was that if you look at the body language when it went to penalties, there was only one team in it. I mean, AC Milan were beat, Liverpool were giving it large, and it was all over.
But remember Dudek, though, the funny thing about him is that he used to get a lot of criticism at Liverpool, didn't he?
Didn't like him.
And I think they sold him anyway, didn't they?
They sold him, yeah.
Even after he won the... Did he stay the next season?
I'm not sure whether he stayed the next season or not. I can't be honest.
He wasn't the most popular keeper there.
Well, he was quite light and sprightly. Whereas I think in the English game now, you've got to be tough. You've got to be physically quite big. That's why De Gea struggled at first, but now he's put on a few pounds, and he's a big boy. He's about 6'4". So you've got to be able to take a knock, and I don't think Dudek could do that, and he wasn't consistent enough. And some of those pretty ugly English winter months can be pretty pretty testing for footballers. And although he came from Poland, which is pretty cold in itself, mate. But yeah, I think he wasn't looked at as well.
He'll always be a legend for that performance, anyway. Won't he? Among Liverpool supporters,
that's what you want.
I bet they were wishing they had someone like that. I mean, poor old Karius.
Yeah. I feel sorry for Karius, actually.
Yeah. So I mean, yourself, like, what did you feel about that? The game.
I felt sorry for I felt sorry that that such a big event was decided by such a small contribution, if you know what I mean. I would have liked to have seen quality, like Bale's goal. Quality, I would have liked to have seen every player play well and no one stuffing up. You know?
Like the Bale goal deciding it at the end or something, or at some point, rather than a couple of errors being ending up accounting for two of the goals in the match.
Because that killed the game. And if you think about it, it's a European Cup final. It's the two best teams in the world, really, club teams in the world.
Yeah.
Then for players of that level to make mistakes like that is disappointing. And for me, it was disappointing because, especially being a goalkeeper, you wouldn't want to wish. I'm in the perfect position now. I'm sitting in the chair with the microphone in front of me, like you are yourself, and we can say whatever we want.
That's it, isn't it?
Because I'm never going to play at a decent level again. I might come and play for your team in a couple of weeks or so, but I don't think that'll be. It will be voiced all over social media about how well I did or how poorly I did, mate.
Yeah, you get away with a mistake for us, mate.
Yeah, but I think I was very disappointed for him, and I think he. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt for a long time. There will be a lot of Liverpool supporters who will not forgive him for that, and like all the English supporters, they can be very unforgiving at times. And I suppose because they're up in the top league. A lot of people will say if we had a decent keeper today, we would have won the European Cup. A lot of Liverpool supporters. So, when you're playing in that English Premier League, if you're not doing well, they'll sell you and get you someone who is going to do well because money's not in a short supply in that league. That's for sure, is it?
But if you really look at that game, looking back at it and thinking back about it now, with Salah, they've got a really good chance of winning that game. Without Salah, Lallana comes on. He's barely played this season. Did they have... they had Mane and Firmino who were good, but they were sort of... Mane was probably the bright spot. He hit the post. He got a good goal off Lovren's assist with that header.
He buzzed about, didn't he?
Lovren had a good game. Yep. He's a guy who gets a lot of flack from Liverpool supporters.
Does he?
Over time he has, but he's actually improved massively under Klopp. And he had a really good... I thought he had a great game that final. And I think most of the Liverpool team did, bar Karius. And then, obviously... Lallana wasn't great coming on, but you could. He was off the pace. It was sort of. You got a feel for the guy. Coming on in the Champions League final and expected to pull something out of his, nether regions and win the game or something. And then, who did Madrid have to bring off the bench? They had Bale, and who did Liverpool have? Lallana. You sort of got to go.
Yeah.
Well, really, are Liverpool really there at this point of Klopp's management? And you'd say, I think he's done a damn good job getting to the Champions League final.
Hasn't he done
with
a
that
good
team.
job? Yep, definitely.
And that's Liverpool supporters have got to look at it and go, Klopp is doing a great job.
Yep.
He's turned the club around from where they were. They had a couple of bad years after Rodgers left, and then Klopp's come in. He's turned things around. So they've lost 2 finals 2 years running, but so what? They're back in the Champions League next year. They can only improve. Yep. They've got all these good players. Are they going to sell? Is Salah going to leave? Probably not, unless some crazy team comes in with some ridiculous offer.
A couple of billion will probably get them, mate.
Yeah. So they're not going to sell it. They've got the team set up. Maybe they've got to strengthen a few areas. Milner's probably on the way out. So they can only just look forward to the future and go, come on, guys. We've done all right. And Klopp's devastating for him. What's he lost? 6 finals or something, or 5 finals? 6 finals, eh? And he's won the German Cup. But sometimes you forget he's won Bundesliga as well with Dortmund. Dortmund. And he's made all these finals, and so he's doing something right, isn't he?
I think so. But we were meant to be talking about the World Cup. So there's just so many talking points from that European Cup final game, isn't there, you know?
Well, the World Cup, the funny thing with the World Cup coming up is that, didn't it? I mean, I remember when I was a kid, the World Cup, the first World Cup I watched was 1990, and I was, how old was I? I was probably 13 years old.
So you were born in 77, were you?
76,
Okay,
late 76,
Yep,
October.
yep.
And I sort of remember, I vaguely remember the one in, when was the other
82?
one? 82.
Because that's when I was 12 years old and I watched when New Zealand got to it.
I vaguely remember 86 World Cup, but
Yep.
I mean, I think I might have even seen highlights of one game, but then I was really right into football by the time the next one came around. And it was a magic occasion, and then 1994. But I mean, has the World Cup lost something these days? Is there too much football?
I think so. I think mate, there were 24 teams back in about 1982 when New Zealand was there.
Yeah.
Now there's 32. It's getting ridiculous, and there's going to be more. There's going to be 180 next World Cup. No, there's going to be a few more than 32 in the next World Cup. But I mean, it's, as I said before, it's the first World Cup in Eastern Europe.
That's good for them.
And that's the first held in Europe since 2006 when Germany beat Italy on penalties, 5-3, and I can remember that. When
Italy beat
France on penalties.
Zidane got seen off.
That's right. Yeah. So, I can't believe that was so long ago, mate. You know. But let's move along. I mean, have you got a team for the World Cup? Who's your favourite? Who do you like to watch, and who's your pick to win?
I don't know, the World Cup. I mean, I think Brazil could be. I think I said that the other day to someone that they'll be back. Maybe it was last week on this show. I mean, I was talking about Brazil having, turned things around quite a lot, and then, that sort of they got they got Tite. He's the coach now. He'd been coached before, but I mean, they're a team that they had that mauling, and then the last World Cup,
shocking, wasn't it?
Yeah, that absolute embarrassment,
especially at home, mate. What a shock,
But I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell. The World Cup's a funny thing these days. I mean, I just think the club game has surpassed it in a lot of ways, and you don't see players at their peak anymore. A lot of them are just tired from the season. Messi. You got to wonder about whether Messi has ever been at his best at a World Cup, and I have to say probably not. I mean, I don't think I've seen him at his best at a World Cup.
I saw glimpses of him in the last World Cup. He's got a couple of good goals.
He did carry them a bit, but I mean, was he? I mean, you got to wonder if he was at his best, maybe they would have won.
I mean, and exactly what you're saying. I agree 100%. I thought he did scored a couple of good goals, looked all good, but he was all good, but he wasn't what he was like at Barcelona.
Well,
mate,
that's the thing, He's fresher at Barca, and it's sort of as much as they love their country and they want to do their fans justice and so on. It's like when you're tired, you're tired, And so the World Cup's an interesting one because you do get these smaller teams, and a lot of their players maybe don't play as many games as the top side. So you sometimes get these upsets now where these little teams have really, like Iceland. I mean, their players didn't play nearly as many games as some of those players.
They'll do well, mate. I promise you. I reckon they'll get out of the group stage, Iceland.
Well, they've got a few good players, but it's one of these cases where you get a team that probably their players are maybe a tiny bit fresher, and that tiny bit makes such a difference.
And they're also a team.
Yeah,
play as a team.
That's a point. That's a big point.
I mean, they beat England recently, and a while back in the qualifiers and the Euro. That's right, and they look good. But I remember I saw an interview with one of the English lads, and they were saying that the Icelandic players were like Vikings. They were huge and they were tough, and because it's only a small country, isn't it? I mean, it's not even 1 million people there or something, is it?
Yeah.
But anyway, moving along, my friend. Let's go and have a look at this NZ football, and they've had a few changes on the board. Obviously, that might bring a few, changes to the way the game's run in New Zealand, and I don't know what your views are, but I'd like to hear them. And I think we've had a lack of transparency for a long, long time. And there's been a lot of unrest with people just following the game in New Zealand. What are your thoughts from where you've seen it?
I was talking to someone the other week, and they were saying just after a game, and it was someone, and they sort of knew what they were talking about. I can't even. It was someone from an opposition side. I can't remember his name even, but he was saying, he thinks there shouldn't be this tendency to go for the to constantly get say, the English coaches and English staff.
Yep.
We should be looking at maybe even looking at Australia. Like they've got, look at their team, look at their national team now, and look at their systems they've got set up over there. They're producing players.
Yep.
Their team's making the World Cup. You know, maybe look at bringing more some Australians over to help us out, or even going elsewhere than England, because has that worked really over time? I mean, you got to wonder. I mean, it's like you can't knock, you know, what the English have given New Zealand football. Like, they've definitely helped us, but at the same time, do we have to start looking elsewhere? Maybe we should get an Italian in to coach. You know,
Why don't we get a Kiwi, mate?
Well, yeah, no, of course, yeah. No, I mean, ideally, I mean, it'd be great to get a Kiwi in. I mean, I've always thought that there's coaches out there. I've recently, actually, not always, but recently, I've realised that there are a lot of good Kiwi coaches out there now who you think, mate, why don't they give them a shot?
Yeah,
Hey.
I agree.
Yeah.
I've been very frustrated for a number of years, and as you know from what I've spoken to you about, I've had a lot of people in New Zealand, ex-players, that have been so disillusioned with the hierarchy in the game here that they turn their back on it when they stop playing. They coach for a few years and they think, oh, what's the point, you know, and what's the point in doing my A and B licence and all this stuff when I'm not going to get any...
Not going to get a look in.
Getting opportunities,
Yeah.
And they're going to bring and as I've mentioned before in the show, and I think I did when you were here a couple of weeks ago, you know, you do well in New Zealand, and quite often they get a coach from overseas to come and take the reins, and then when he fails, he leaves and he takes a couple of our decent coaches with him, you know?
Yeah. And it's like they maybe some of them can just come to New Zealand to do to sort of do well for a little bit.
Yep.
To get an offer from elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah?
I think,
and that's it. It's not really like they're really. If you got a New Zealand coach, you know, he gives a crap. You know, that's the thing, or he or she gives a crap about New Zealand football. You know, and it's like, and that creates a different dynamic with it. You know, like look, what about Leon Burney? He's a good coach. He's doing well now.
Yep, he's doing well.
Yeah, he's a guy.
He's still up in Napier, isn't he?
I think he still lives up in Hawke's Bay. Yeah, he's a guy that should get a look at in the future for coaching the top side. Why not? You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you've got nothing to lose there. You're going to save a lot of money paying him a wage than what you would getting someone from England.
Yeah,
and all the relocation costs and all that, which shouldn't come into it. But you've got to factor that in New Zealand, because harsh reality is we haven't got a big budget in this country, have we, mate?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, you look at guys like Chris Zorzic, Danny Hay. I've got a friend called Noel Barclay who was a great striker in his day for Mount Wellington, an Irish lad, and you know, and he's into insurance up on, I think he's on Waiheke Island now, but Noel and I,
spot.
yeah, it's lovely, and Noel's a really lovely guy, and he's very knowledgeable about the game.
Yeah,
he speaks very well, and unlike me as a goalkeeper, but he's one of those guys I think that could do a hell of a lot of good for the game in New Zealand, but I think he is possibly in the same bracket as so many others, that he's just had enough of what he's seen going on.
Yeah, well, so these board changes, they've come in now, have they?
There's just a couple of people I think have left the board, and I think there's 2 or 3 new people. So
hopefully they'll shake it up, maybe.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping so, because the change has to come. I know that the youth set up in New Zealand now, there's been changes there.
Yeah.
That they haven't been happy with. I'm glad to see that they've got this new pay structure with the women's team now, which they're getting equal pay, you know, daily allowance, what the senior All Whites men get.
Yeah, it's only fair.
Yeah, of course it is. And,
especially with women's football in New Zealand's big. You know, it's a popular game. It's growing. Yeah. No, it's moving forward. Yeah,
we've got we've got a lot of people who want to put into the women's game here, which is good. And we've got girls playing that are playing overseas professionally.
Yeah.
And I think New Zealand is we're really, you know, I wouldn't say we're punching above our weight, but we're definitely punching, you know, and achieving. So they should get recognition. I mean, I've heard so many stories of, you know, of the women players in the past that have, you know, had to ask mum and dad for extra bucks to get by each month, sort of thing, you know, because their part-time job, which they take on to give them the opportunity to go and train like they have to, it means they can't pay their bills, you know, and so they need assistance from mum and dad, or, you know, or someone else, and that's wrong. And although it's not professional yet in New Zealand, having that pay equality now is going to do wonderful for the women's game.
Yeah, it's a good example for the rest of the sports as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, do you ever go down and watch the girls play at all?
I used to when I had a club, the Island Bay. No, they didn't have a women's team at the time.
Yeah, I used to go and watch the Miramar women's team play again. I'd rather watch them play than watch my team, the Miramar first team play. They got stuck in and they were great and they buzzed and they were just good people, and they loved the game. And recently I've seen the Wairarapa women's team play and they get stuck into it as well. And they're great competitors, mate. And I strongly recommend, if you've got an afternoon off, mate, and it's normally on a Sunday, I think the women play, get down and watch the local women's team play because it's pretty good shit, mate.
I think they've changed the top women's Central League is on Saturdays now.
Oh, is it?
I was talking to a ref the other week, and it has, at the moment, maybe Capital Football haven't really thought it through properly because it's actually caused a bit of a problem with the officials available.
Oh, yeah.
So, because the Women's Central League, I think it's the Premier, they need 3 officials for every match, and their games are kicking off around the same, but they're sort of kicking off between 2 kickoffs during the men's time. So they're going to have to work that out because it's sort of putting a strain on the amount of officials available for all the games now. So,
but you'd also be struggling, I think, with pitches, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's enough pitches now. I
Yeah.
mean, they're all over the place, especially in town now. They've got all those artificials and so on. I mean, in
What
Wellington,
do you think of the artificial pitches, mate?
The good ones are good.
Yeah.
The bad ones are bad. They're terrible.
Is that right? I haven't seen a bad one myself, but I just love them, mate. 'Cause you
I
can
played
play
on a
with
few in Melbourne that were the older style, and yeah, you get all sorts of problems with some of them. And I mean, personally, I don't like the one here in Wairarapa and Marston. I don't like that too. If I think
Yeah.
I've played on it only once, and I found it sort of sticky. I didn't like the way. I didn't like the way you could run on it. There's something not quite right about that pitch. That's my personal opinion.
Yep.
But the ones in the city, like the Island Bay ones at Wakefield, they're great. They're lovely. I've played on them a few times, and they're good surfaces. But yeah, it's just a thing with those turfs. I mean, if they get it right, they're good to play on, and it's like playing on there's one up behind the old show buildings. What's the one in the middle of town there?
Yeah, in Newtown.
That's a pretty good one. It's an older one, but it's actually a good quality one.
And they've got good lights up there as well,
Yeah,
mate, which is obviously important, mate. I mean, that's nice. You go on a Wednesday evening, you go and play.
I got a terrible memory about that pitch, actually. That was the pitch I got. I was playing for Kapiti United back in 2009 or something, and we lost a relegation playoff to Wellington Olympic on that pitch, 2-1 in extra time. And, one of my darkest days in football. And, we were robbed, though. I mean, I don't want to talk about it too much, but we scored, and we would have won 2-1, but we got our striker called. I played the ball. Our striker went 1-on-1, scored, then the ref called it offside. Then they came back and they scored 2-1. We lost the game. I went to the Phoenix after with my mates, and I just sat there with my beer and just stared at the ground.
Crying into your beer, mate.
Yeah. Kapiti United are doing well again now, though. They're back up there in the Capital Prem.
Well, mate, we're just about finished for the day.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in again tonight, mate. We'll see everyone will listen to us again next week. As I said, 06378 0255 is the number for people to call in next week if they want to have a chat about football, and we'll obviously put it on the Utter Football website what we're going to be talking.
Next week we could do a bit of a World Cup sort of.
Yep.
Do a little bit more research on what's going to happen and what players are available and so on. Bit of a preview.
Yep.
It's not far away.
Just lastly, mate, let's finish with this. Who have you got this weekend? Is it Carterton? No, you're playing Featherston.
Oh, we got Greytown away.
Oh, yeah. So I got a text today from someone to say they're playing Carterton this weekend. Will I like to come and play?
Oh, really?
And I said no, thank you.
Maybe that might be Featherston. That might be playing our other Carterton team.
Must be then.
Yeah.
Mate, thanks for coming in today, eh?
Ah, cool, man. Always good to come in. And
it's always
hang
good
out
fun and lovely to talk football. And we'll finish off with that, and we'll see everyone next week.
Cool.
Cheers, mate.
I'm dying without you. I need to get away and clear my head.